Dwayne Johnson saw a little boy return his dream toy at checkout. Minutes later, his unexpected gesture left every shopper in the store crying. The toy store was buzzing with holiday chaos. Parents rushing through aisles, kids squealing with excitement, and the sound of Christmas music blending with the hum of last-minute shopping. Shelves were being emptied fast, as desperate shoppers grabbed whatever was left, determined to make this Christmas perfect for their little ones. Dwayne Johnson stepped inside, unnoticed at first. Dressed in a hoodie and jeans, he wasn't here for cameras or attention. No flashing lights, no security detail, just a father picking out gifts for his daughters. But the moment he walked in, something stopped him in his tracks. Near the action figure aisle, a small boy stood motionless, holding a toy in his tiny hands. He wasn't bouncing excitedly like the other kids. His grip on the box was tight, as if he was trying to memorize how it felt before letting it go. Behind him, his mother shifted uncomfortably, her eyes filled with silent pain. She knelt down, resting a gentle hand on his shoulder. Dwayne overheard the moment that would change everything. "We can't, sweetheart," she whispered, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Maybe next year." The boy looked up at her, trying so hard to be strong. He gave her a small nod, blinked a few times, and then, without a word, placed the toy back on the shelf. Dwayne felt something tighten in his chest. The way the boy took a deep breath, like he was swallowing disappointment he was too young to carry. It hit him harder than any action movie stunt ever could. He had been that kid once. He knew that feeling. He watched the boy walk away, trying not to look back. But Dwayne? He couldn't look away. He clenched his jaw, his eyes fixed on the toy shelf. An idea sparked in his mind, one that would change Christmas for every kid in that store. Dwayne's eyes stayed fixed on the little boy as he walked away, his small shoulders slightly hunched, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his worn-out jacket. He didn't whine. He didn't beg his mother to reconsider. He just accepted it, like he was already used to life telling him no. His mother followed close behind, blinking back the sadness she thought no one could see. She pulled her purse closer to her side and kept her head down, avoiding the gaze of other shoppers as they passed by. Dwayne could tell she had been through this before, choosing between rent, food, and the simple joys her child deserved. Something about that moment felt heavier than it should have. Maybe it was the way the boy had to force himself to let go of something he wanted. Maybe it was the way his mother swallowed her pain to stay strong for him. Whatever it was, Dwayne couldn't shake it. He started walking, casually following them at a distance, pretending to browse the shelves. The boy stopped by the store's front window, pressing his little hands against the glass as he watched other kids outside, laughing with their parents, holding shopping bags filled with gifts. His mother crouched beside him and ruffled his hair. "I promise next year will be better," she said softly. The boy smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that reaches the eyes. It was the kind that kids learn when they don't want their parents to feel bad. Dwayne clenched his jaw. No kid should have to learn that smile. Just then, a group of children ran past, their arms full of toys. They giggled as they raced toward the checkout counter, excitedly talking about what Santa was going to bring them. The little boy turned his head slightly, just for a second. And that was the moment Dwayne saw it. A flicker of longing in his eyes. A flash of what he wished he could feel. He wasn't jealous. He wasn't angry. He was just a kid who had accepted that Christmas wasn't for kids like him. Dwayne felt his chest tighten. He had spent years working hard, pushing himself beyond limits. But at that moment, nothing felt more important than changing this boy's Christmas. His mind was made up. This wasn't ending here. Dwayne took a deep breath, his mind racing. This couldn't be just another moment he witnessed and walked away from. That boy, his mother, and countless other families in that store, they deserved a Christmas that didn't come with a price tag. He pulled his hoodie over his head a little more and made his way toward the front counter. The store manager, a middle-aged man with reading glasses perched on the tip of his nose, barely looked up as he helped a cashier ring up a long line of customers. Dwayne tapped the counter lightly. "Hey, boss, can I talk to you for a second?" The manager glanced up and did a double take, his eyes widening as he realized who was standing in front of him. His mouth opened slightly, but before he could say anything, Dwayne gave him a reassuring nod. "Relax, man, I'm just here for something special. Got a minute?" The manager quickly nodded, stepping aside to talk. Dwayne leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "I need you to do something for me," he said. "How much would it cost to buy every single toy in this store?" The manager blinked. Every toy?" Dwayne nodded. "Yeah, every last one. No kid walks out of here empty-handed today." The manager pulled off his glasses, rubbing his temples. That's a lot of toys. I mean, we're talking about thousands of dollars worth of merchandise." Dwayne smiled. "You tell me the number, I'll make it happen." The manager hesitated. "Are you serious?" Dwayne leaned in slightly. "You see that little boy over there?" He pointed toward the front of the store, where the boy still stood by the window, his mother fixing his jacket. "He walked in here hoping for one thing, and now he's walking out with nothing, and he's not the only one." The manager followed Dwayne's gaze, seeing the boy, seeing the mother, seeing the quiet heartbreak in real time. His shoulders relaxed, and he swallowed hard before giving a small nod. "I'll make the call," he said. Minutes later, as the announcement rang through the store, parents looked up in confusion. Cashiers paused mid-scan, and the little boy, who was about to step outside, turned back toward the sound of the manager's voice. Something big was about to happen. The manager's voice echoed through the speakers, cutting through the holiday chatter. "Attention, shoppers. Today, thanks to a very generous customer, every single toy in this store is being given away, for free. If you're here looking for a gift for your child, don't worry about the price. Just pick what they love, and it's yours." For a moment, silence. Then, confusion. People exchanged looks, unsure if they heard it right. Parents hesitated, waiting for the catch. A woman near the register clutched a doll to her chest, her lips slightly parted in disbelief. Then, a little girl, no older than 5, grabbed her father's hand and whispered, "Does that mean I can get the teddy bear?" Her father, a man who had spent the last 5 minutes staring at the price tag, nodded slowly, his eyes glassy. "Yes, sweetheart, you can." And just like that, the magic began. A mother, who had been counting cash in her wallet, suddenly pulled her son into a hug, whispering something in his ear before rushing back to grab the toy he had begged for earlier. A dad, who had been trying to decide between food for the week or a gift, picked up a boxed race car set, his hands trembling as he stared at it. Children cheered. Parents cried. Cashiers stood frozen, watching something unfold that none of them had ever seen before. Dwayne stood in the background, arms crossed, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. He wasn't here for recognition. He didn't need the applause. He just wanted to watch. To see kids who walked in feeling forgotten leave, knowing they mattered. The little boy, the one who had placed his toy back on the shelf, hadn't moved. He was still by the window, staring at the checkout line as people walked forward with full hands, but empty wallets. He tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mom," his voice was barely above a whisper. "Did you hear that?" His mother wiped her eyes quickly, forcing a smile. "I did, baby." He looked up at her, eyes wide with hope. "Does that mean I can have the toy?" She let out a shaky breath and nodded. "Yes, sweetheart, you can." His face lit up in a way that made Dwayne's chest tighten. The boy didn't run, didn't scream. He just walked back to the shelf, slowly, as if he was afraid the moment would disappear. He picked up the toy with both hands, staring at it for a long second before clutching it to his chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. The manager walked over to Dwayne, shaking his head in disbelief. "I've been running this store for 10 years, he said. "I've never seen anything like this." Dwayne shrugged, watching the boy now grinning from ear to ear. "Neither have I," he said. "But this is what Christmas should feel like." The store was alive with emotion, laughter, happy tears, and the sound of children celebrating like it was the best day of their lives. Parents who had walked in worried about how to stretch their budgets were now holding gifts they never thought they could afford. The weight of financial stress had been lifted, even if just for one night. Some people looked around trying to figure out who had done this. They whispered among themselves, scanning the crowd, but the man responsible was still standing quietly in the background, watching the joy unfold. But then, the little boy from earlier turned his head. His toy still held tightly against his chest. He noticed something. The tall man in the hoodie standing near the back of the store, smiling to himself. There was something familiar about him. The way he carried himself, the way his presence filled the room. He tugged on his mother's sleeve, whispering, "Mom, that's the Rock." His mother blinked, looking in the direction her son was pointing. Her breath hitched. She covered her mouth with her hand, realization dawning on her like a sunrise. Before she could even speak, the store manager stepped forward. He grabbed the microphone from the counter, his voice shaky with emotion. "Everyone, I think it's time we acknowledge the person who made this all possible," he said. The crowd turned toward him, their excitement settling into a hush. "We just had Christmas come early today, and there's only one man to thank for it." Every head turned toward where the manager was looking. Dwayne exhaled slowly, shaking his head with a small smile as people began to recognize him. It started as murmurs, then gasps, and then applause, loud, thunderous, filled with gratitude. People began clapping, tears still fresh in their eyes, as they realized the reason their kids would wake up with presents this Christmas. Some parents covered their faces, overcome with emotion. Some just stood there, shaking their heads, speechless. But Dwayne's focus was still on one person, the little boy. He walked forward, the crowd parting as he approached. The boy stood frozen, gripping his toy like it was his most prized possession. His mother's eyes welled up as Dwayne knelt in front of them. "You got your toy, champ?" Dwayne asked softly. The boy nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you." Dwayne smiled and ruffled the boy's hair. "Merry Christmas, buddy. This one's for you." The boy hesitated for a moment. Then, without warning, threw his arms around Dwayne's neck in the tightest hug he could give. The room erupted in cheers. Some people were recording, some were just wiping their eyes. And for the first time that night, even Dwayne felt his throat tighten. This wasn't about money. This was about giving people something to believe in. And in that moment, as he hugged the boy back, he knew he had done just that. As the excitement settled and families began gathering their gifts, Dwayne took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the moment. He had come in for a simple Christmas errand, but he was leaving with something much bigger, memories that would last far beyond the holiday season. He was about to head toward the exit when, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a man standing outside the store. Dressed in a worn-out coat, the man stood still, watching through the window. His face was rough, lined with exhaustion, and his hands were tucked deep into his sleeves to fight the winter cold. He wasn't staring at the toys. He was staring at the families, the joy, the moments he no longer had. Dwayne stepped outside, the chill hitting him instantly. The man turned slightly, looking down as if he didn't want to be noticed. Without a word, Dwayne reached into his pocket, pulled out a thick envelope, and placed it in the man's hands. The man looked up, confused. "Sir, Dwayne squeezed his shoulder gently. "Merry Christmas, brother. Stay warm tonight." The man's hands trembled as he looked inside, his eyes widening, his lip quivering. For a moment, he tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he pulled the envelope to his chest, nodding, his eyes filled with something far greater than gratitude, hope. By the time Dwayne stepped into his car and drove away, the store was still buzzing with excitement. Shoppers were wiping tears, hugging their children a little tighter, and replaying what had just happened. What started as a simple act of kindness had turned into something much bigger. People had captured the moment on their phones. The little boy's hug, the cheers, the stunned reactions of parents who couldn't believe what they were hearing. Within hours, the videos flooded social media. "The Rock just bought out an entire toy store," one post read. "Christmas angel in real life." By morning, the story was everywhere. News channels, celebrity blogs, even headlines in newspapers. But when reporters reached out, Dwayne had only one response. "This isn't about me. It's about making sure every kid wakes up smiling on Christmas morning. That's all that matters." And just like that, a simple moment became a miracle for hundreds. This story is proof that kindness has the power to change lives. One simple act can create a ripple effect of hope, joy, and unforgettable moments. If this touched your heart, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more inspiring stories. And don't forget, the next video is waiting for you on the screen right now. Click it, and let's keep the inspiration going.